Good evening. My name is Rob Epstein, and I am one of 3 governors in the documentary branch. Thank you. Along with Michael Moore and Michael Abted. On behalf of the Academy and the documentary branch, welcome to our 3rd annual Docs Night Symposium. This year we have a sold-out house, so thank you all for being here. And we're also streaming online, so welcome to everyone watching online as well. As you know, this is a special evening to honor this year's nominees in the documentary categories. Docs Night was initiated years ago by the International Documentary Association. Yes, thank you, IDA. And the Academy is pleased to continue that tradition. So to get things started, please join me in congratulating our intrepid nominees for their great achievement this year. Okay, to present this year's nominees, it is my job to introduce a man who needs no introduction. With his first film, Roger and Me, in 1989, Michael Moore proved to the world that a documentary film could be a theatrical blockbuster. And he has continued that trajectory ever since. As a documentary filmmaker, Michael has an historic track record on many fronts, tackling such important subjects as the demise of the U.S. auto industry, the American plague of guns and violence, the aftermath of 9/11, a troubled American healthcare system, and the current financial crisis. And he's done it all with his trademark wit and humor. These titles include the Oscar-winning Bowling for Columbine, the Academy Award-nominated Sicko, Capitalism, A Love Story, and Fahrenheit 9/11, which was the first documentary ever to win the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. So please welcome the highest-grossing documentary filmmaker ever to set foot on this stage, the man who needs no introduction, Michael Moore.
Good evening, and welcome to those of you at home who are watching this live on the internets. We welcome you as part of this new technology that permeates the landscape these days. Thank you very much, Rob, for those kind words, and for actually giving me an introduction, because you as you said, most people say this guy needs no introduction, and I always feel like I'd love to hear an introduction once. So thank you for that. I'm really moved. We're here tonight to celebrate and honor this year's documentary filmmakers, both in the feature category and the short category. Those of us who make nonfiction films, documentaries, do so because we like to tell stories, but we believe that it's important to tell some true stories every once in a while. Somebody was just asking me out in the lobby, one of the press there, about why did I think documentaries had become more popular in recent years. And I said I think it's because the public wants the truth. And they've been lied to more in recent years. In the last decade or so, especially, and so they've turned to documentaries to try and find out what's really behind what's going on. I was flying out here this afternoon, and the seat next to me was empty, and so that was an invitation for a series of people during the flight to sit down, and. And what happened during the 6 hours flying here from New York was what actually happens to me quite often, and that is people wanting to tell me their stories. And they always begin with this sentence: "You should make a documentary on..." Fill in the blank. And today I heard from a woman whose brother has returned from Iraq and is not getting the mental help that he needs. Could you please do a documentary on that? A flight attendant told me a story about her uncle committing suicide. He was a Vietnam vet who did not get help. Could you maybe do a documentary on that? And there's just a wide range of these things that people are just desperate to please. And it's amazing to watch this because, again, these are not the people that necessarily go to art houses or independent theaters, but many of them probably have never even, they haven't been to a documentary in a movie theater at all, but they know that the power of documentary. They believe somewhere in their bones that you can make a difference. And it's a very profound thing for me to witness every week as I hear this litany of ideas, of things that people wish that we would make documentaries on. And we have really, this has been a great year to show the power of documentaries. I mean, the real power. I don't mean that in a way that, in a cliched way. I mean the actual effect that documentaries have had this year on people. We've seen a documentary this year, the third part of a trilogy of documentaries over the last 17 years that has led to freeing 3 innocent people who were in prison. I mean, Joe and Bruce, you did that. You and your filmmaking did that. Until a year or two ago, no one ever heard of the word fracking. And then somebody made a documentary called Gasland. And now everybody knows about fracking. In fact, in the cab on the way to the airport this morning, the news was on in New York, and it said that the New York State judge yesterday ruled in favor of the small communities in upstate New York who have passed ordinances and laws prohibiting fracking. And the judge said that they have a right to overrule the oil and gas companies, these small communities. A documentary helped to make that happen. Tomorrow morning, Bradley Manning will be arraigned in court. He's been sitting in jail for over 500 days with no trial, no charges. And tomorrow, that process will finally start to happen. He's, of course, accused of providing documentary evidence to WikiLeaks. And we have, as one of our nominees tonight, a short film called Incident in New Baghdad that will show you, and people who see this film for the first time will see the first piece of footage that Manning is alleged to have leaked to WikiLeaks. And it is a troubling documentary short. And yet I truly believe the more Americans that see this film as the story is told of the soldier who was there that day and who witnessed everything, and who is proud of the fact that the Bradley Mannings of this world are willing to take those risks and put that footage out there. But a trial starts tomorrow because somebody released some archival footage. So, Apple, China. I never heard much being discussed about this until a radio documentary a few weeks ago by Mike Daisey and This American Life did this whole thing on the factory, the Foxconn factory in China. And he's been doing a one-man show. Now, this isn't film, but this is, again, the documentary form in action. And now, Apple this week is having to announce they're instituting all these new measures. They're giving pay raises. The suicide nets are still up. But we wouldn't have heard of this if somebody wasn't willing to do a piece of nonfiction art to expose this to the public. So it's a great year for documentaries, and I'm very honored and proud to be part of this. Just a few words on some of the challenges that I see ahead of us as documentary filmmakers. First of all, there's the digital challenge, and I want to just reiterate this to those of you who are documentary filmmakers, and we all shoot on digital now. But this is not a form. What you're shooting on is not going to last. And New York Film Festival called me a few weeks ago because they're having their 50th anniversary this fall. And in the weeks leading up to the anniversary, they wanted to show some of the films that have been in the festival in these 50 years. And Roger Me was one of the films they wanted to show. So they called the archives at Warner Brothers to get a copy of the print. And Warner's went and looked, and they came back and said, well, we have 3 copies, but they're all debilitated and gone. So he said, Warner Brothers said, there is no print of Roger and Me that exists. I was stunned to hear this. They do have the negative, though, and they got the negative out of the salt mines, and it's in great condition, and they're going to make a number of prints, and we're going to store them here at the Academy and at MoMA in New York. But this is something we're going to have to deal with, and the Academy has released this report called The Digital Dilemma, and it's something we all need to pay attention to, because what you're filming now won't exist in 5 or 10 or 15 years. I mean, parts of it may exist. There might be digital noise that exists, but the process of actually projecting it or showing it won't exist. And if you don't believe that, those of you in here who had children, who had babies 15 years ago, and you took all those cute pictures, those baby pictures, and put them on your 5-inch floppy disk that may be still sitting in the back of your drawer somewhere, pull out that floppy disk tonight and tell me what machine you could put that in to download those photos. So many family photos are gone because people thought, well, it's digital. This is going to be forever now. It's all ones and zeros. That's not the case. This is a very serious problem that we're going to have to deal with. For documentaries in particular, though, we continue to have a hard time getting a lot of documentaries distributed in movie theaters. And there's been a lot of talk lately about the new rules that we've established to make the process more democratic and more accessible. Everyone's going to be voting now in the branch on the nominees, and everyone in the Academy will now vote on Best Documentary. And so this is a really good thing to have happened. As documentary filmmakers, when we get our ballot, we get to vote for Best Hair and Makeup. And, we don't know anything about hair and makeup, but we get to vote on it. The hair and makeup people don't get to vote on what their favorite documentary is. So we decided that just really wasn't fair, and we want documentaries treated like feature films. They're films, they're just nonfiction. That's the only difference. So if we want to be considered part of this, we need to play by the rules that everybody else plays by, and that includes these movies being in movie theaters. And that's the real discussion we should be having. We should be talking about what can we do to get documentaries distributed. And if the studios aren't going to do it, then we're going to have to do it. I'm very willing to sit down with whoever wants to have a discussion this year about forming a documentary co-op or some form of organization or whatever that will be a distribution system to get our films out there to the public, not just in New York and LA, but in Boise and Kansas City and Flint, Michigan. I think that people want to see these films. They love nonfiction. They just don't have the ability to see it. And, of course, many theaters won't show documentaries anymore. And that's our other problem, the exhibitors. Toronto has come up with, I think, a really cool idea. The Toronto Film Festival has either just bought or it's been donated to them the Bloor Cinema in Toronto. And the film festival has decided to turn that into an all-documentary movie theater, 365 days of the year, showing documentary films to give that platform so documentaries can be shown to the people in Toronto. Ideas like that are the things we should be talking about. Instead of just complaining about, this and that and whatever they won't do, listen, it's our art, right? Why do we turn the power of this over to somebody else to exhibit our art? If we were painters and we were having a show of our paintings at a gallery down in the village, we wouldn't just ship our paintings in a FedEx box and then after you're done with the painting, that's it, I don't have to look at it again. No, you'd be down there, you'd pick out the frame, right? You'd be down there lighting each painting on the wall. You'd have the whole thing set up. I don't want that ficus tree over there. Move that. I mean, that's what other artists do. But we, as artists, we finish our film, we're exhausted, and then it just gets shipped out to HBO or POV or some small mini major that's going to show the documentary. This isn't going to happen if we turn that power and control over to others. We have to take that into our own hands, and we need to sit down and think about what we can do to get our films distributed and exhibited all across the country. Please join me in this effort in the coming year. And I just want to close by saying that there's nothing that compares to sitting in a dark theater with 100 or 200, or in this case tonight, 1,000 people, sharing the cinematic experience. There's no way that the television, the computer screen, the iPhone screen, or the new sunglasses are going to invent where it's just going to be playing on the lens, Terminator style. Those are all fine ways to watch a film. But there's something about when you do that alone, especially with some of these films you're going to see clips of here tonight. These are things you should see with your fellow Americans. These are things you should sit there and feel in the room. The sadness, the anger, the hilarity, the beauty of dancers flying at you in 3D at the screen. All of that is better when we experience this together and collectively. Don't you agree? And the movie theater is never going away because people are always going to want to get out of the house. The theaters are not going to die. I mean, if that was the case, why are there still restaurants? Everybody's got a kitchen in their home. Why do people go to restaurants? Why would you want to go and sit and eat 5 feet from a stranger chewing your food? Why do we do that? We're human beings. We're social animals. We have to have that contact, that connection with other people. And that's why the movies won't die. Not just because people want to get out of the house, but because they want to experience that with people that they don't even know. They want to sit there in the dark and feel whatever the feeling is that's being generated by the film that they're watching on the screen. So we all need to be huge supporters of the theatrical documentary and get behind films getting out there in movie theaters. This should be those of you who aren't documentary filmmakers but you love documentaries, help us with this. Tell your local theater you want to see nonfiction films on that screen. People will come to these films if they're treated the right way, if they're marketed properly, they'll have a chance. But this won't happen on its own. We're going to have to do that ourselves. So that is my sermon for the evening. In nomine Patris et Filio Spiritus Sanctus. We're going to get things going here. This evening is going to be done in two parts. The first part will be the documentary short nominees. We're going to begin by showing about 20 minutes worth, a series of clips from each of these incredible documentary shorts. And then when those clips are over, the documentary filmmakers are going to, the short documentary filmmakers are going to join me on the stage for a discussion. And after that's over, we'll then show clips from the 5 nominated documentary feature films for this year. And after that clip package, the documentary feature filmmakers will join me on the stage for a similar discussion. So I hope you enjoy this evening. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for being supporters of nonfiction film. And let's begin by showing some incredible footage by our wonderful group of documentary short filmmakers.
First up, we have the Barber of Birmingham, foot soldier of the civil rights movement. Nominees Robin Fryday and Gail Dolgin, who are both directors as well as producers.
One day prior to Election Day, so it'll take place tonight at 6:30 p.m. Everybody is invited, and you know what? It's time for us to pray for real. Get out and vote tomorrow, okay? This is 16 WHGG. It's 11:48. Got more of your favorites coming up in just a little bit.
I always thought when I was growing up, the worst thing a man can do is nothing. I got a lot of pictures of everybody in here that was doing something. When we started the struggle, I joined the struggle. I remember some terrible days. I thought about what Dr. King said. I've been to the mountaintop, and I look over and saw the promised land. I may not get there with you, but you will get to the promised land. Just keep on keeping on. Yes, indeed. Things are changing. I said, a black man is the president of the United States. I mean, you say that to yourself. Black man, president of the United States.
If you can't fly, run to the folks. Tell them this too is your nation. You can't run, walk. Tell them it won't be no resignation. You can't walk, crawl to the polls. Vote your determination. Any old way you can make it, baby. You keep on moving it on. Any old way you can make it, baby. You keep on moving it on.
I see the man got the coffee, but he don't have no scotch though. I always put scotch in my coffee.
What you doing with scotch early in the morning? Go on now, don't tell nobody else.
But then said that would help you a lot.
Go on now, you on TV talking about scotch and coffee.
That's right. Try to tell the truth. That's what they want, the truth.
Oh.
This is beautiful. I'm always at the door. Because when I get out here, somebody don't be even standing around. But look what we got now. The line go everywhere. This way it ought to be for years. But now, we just not waking up. Yeah, I think about that, and I'm willing to stand if my folk come out here like this.
Any old way you can make it, baby, you keep on moving it.
Oh, yeah. This is a beautiful, look at the sun, how beautiful it is. Right here in Birmingham. Everybody's smiling. All right. I'm going to get me a bacon and eggs biscuit. All right, young man, how about it?
I'm doing all
okay. Things are changing. I had breakfast this morning at the lunch counter that I used to couldn't go in. Now you don't have to worry about one color in the lunch counter downtown. That's a greenback. I love that. If I live long enough, I'm gonna see a better day if I stay here.
Next, God is the Bigger Elvis. Nominees, director and producer Rebecca Cammisa and producer Julie Anderson.
My early life was probably the most unstable factor in the world, and that I think was perhaps the first inkling of being a Benedictine, because the stability factor had to come within me. When I was born, my mother and my father had absolutely no way to handle me because they were teenagers, 17 and 18. And this was a tragedy to my grandmother. She wanted to have me aborted. I had that kind of relationship with God that I think most young kids have. Faith was going to heal everything. Right now, it was going to work. I prayed that I would become an actress, and I knew God was on my side. When I was in Hollywood, I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning, whether I was working or not, to go to daily mass and to go to communion. Did I pray to get the part of loving you? You bet you're sweet, I did. Every role I got, I prayed for. When I first came to the Abbey, I was on Broadway doing Pleasure of His Company. A friend of mine suggested I come up to the Abbey because I was having fatigue after 9 months in the show. And she said, well, I know this place in the country. They're very easygoing nuns. Just go for a few days and rest. And I said, nuns? I don't want to go any place when there's nuns. And she said, oh, don't be so stiff. Just try it. They're contemplative, and they won't talk. So I came, and I really loved it. It just felt peaceful. I knew I was myself. I could find my own inner certitude. I met the Reverend Mother, and the concern that I had was that it was wrong as a Catholic to be in the movies, because sexually you could be aroused by boys, and you could get involved sexually with men. And my leading star was Elvis. She said, well, why not? You're a girl. Chastity doesn't mean that you don't appreciate what God created. Chastity says, use it well. I came away with a sense of peace, a sense of interior renewal. And I said, I'll come back. I said, I'll come back.
And now, Incident in New Baghdad. Director, producer James Spione, nominee.
When I went around to the passenger side of the van, the soldier that I was with, who I had trained with, he was in my squad. He looked inside with me, turned around, started puking, and ran away. He didn't want to have anything to do with that part of what he saw inside with the children. What I saw when I looked in was a little girl about 3 or 4 years old. She was sitting on the passenger seat. She had a wound to her belly. She had glass in her eyes and in her hair. She had a bunch of little scratches and cuts. Next to her, laying half on the floorboard with his head resting on the bench seat, was a boy about 7 or 8 years old. I immediately thought he was dead. He wasn't moving or breathing. Next to him in the driver's seat was who I assumed was the father. When I first pulled the girl out and I had her in my arms, cradling her, it's kind of weird to explain it, but I almost felt as if I was holding my own child. And the emotions that were rushing through me It was very emotional for me because my son was born just prior to this, and my daughter was close to the same age, and I kept picturing my own children. I'm trying to pick as much glass out of her eyes as I can so that she can close them without cutting her eyes anymore. I was running water through her hair, trying to wash out the blood and the glass from her hair too, and the whole time I'm fighting back tears.
Roger, we need to evac this child. She's got a wound in the belly.
That's when you can hear in the video the medics say, "There's nothing else I can do for this girl here. We need to get her evac'd." And so he runs her to the Bradley.
Baghdad Radio, Spear 02 and flight, free change zone 1.
I went back outside to take pictures because we were told to take pictures of the scene. And when I looked back in on the van, I saw the boy take like a labored breath. That's when I started screaming out, "The boy's alive, the boy's alive." I grabbed him, picked him up, told him everything was going to be okay, and started running towards the Bradley. He opened his eyes and looked at me, and I told him it was going to be okay, I have him, don't die, don't die. And his eyes rolled back into his head again. That's when I got up to the Bradley and placed him inside the Bradley with the medics. There was just so much blood on me from him that I didn't think he was going to survive. I didn't know exactly what happened. I think I put it into my head that it was obviously the guys who had the RPGs and the AK-47s that shot up this van. I put myself in denial that us as American troops could do this to innocent children. I had to clean the blood of the children off of my uniform and my IBA, which is your protective vest, and I had a huge flood of emotions just barraging me, and started piecing it together, and I started realizing that it was the Apaches that did that.
And now, Saving Face. Nominees, directors and producers Daniel Junge and Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy.
ये जो जलाया मेरे हस्बैंड ने जलाया, ठीक है। तो मैं सो रही थी तो अम्मी के घर में आया इस तरह, तो उसने मुझे जला दिया। खुद ही वो इंसान ऐसा था कि वो नहीं रखना चाहता मुझे।
मैं उस वक्त 13 साल की थी जब मेरे साथ अटैक हुआ है। उससे पहले जो मेरे स्कूल टीचर और उसके फ्रेंड ने मेरा रास्ता रोका है, तो मैंने साथ जाने से इनकार किया, तो इस वजह से उन्होंने मेरे ऊपर तेजाब गिरा दिया।
मैं एक रात सो रही थी, उसने तेजाब फेंका। मेरे चेहरे पर नहीं था लेकिन मेरे कंधे पर था। फिर उसने जब 1 साल बाद फेंका, वो मेरे चेहरे पे गया था। वो रिश्ते की वजह से फेंका था ना।
हम तो मासूम बच्चे, तो इसने हमारा चेहरा क्यों खराब किया था? हमारे क्या कसूर था?
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum. How are you? Fine. Now tell me, what do I need to do? I need to change, or I can just go to...
Really go down, you wear a shoe cover.
That's fine. I can... Why? My name is Mohammed Jawad. I'm originally from Pakistan. I was born and raised in Karachi. I'm a consultant plastic surgeon, and I do wonderful body contouring and liposhaping, tummy tuck, etc. I do a lot of facial work. And I tell you, I'm a damn good breast surgeon there. I make them big, I make them small. Although I love to do the breast work, what I'm really known for is my buns work. So when I heard about the acid violence in my homeland, I said, bingo, I must do something. And when I said there's so many of them, I had to go back. Okay. अस्सलाम वालेकुम। ज़की आपका नाम है? ज़की मेरा नाम जवाद है और आपके जो डॉक्टर हैं तारिक साहब उन्होंने मुझे कहा कि आपको ज़रा मैं देख लूँ। अच्छा? अब ये मुझे बताओ कैसी हो? ओके। अब आपकी कितनी उम्र है?
मेरी 39 होने वाली।
39। क्या हुआ था?
ये सर तेजाब गिराया था।
किसने?
चौधरी।
ओके। राइट। मैं ज़रा देख सकता हूँ? इस और भी तो जिस्म में हिस्सा है यही है सिर्फ? Abu sir, you want to come here? तो यहाँ पे बेसिकली उनके आपने पट्टी देखी उन्होंने यहाँ पे स्किन ग्राफ्ट लगाया होगा?
सर ये गन पीप वगैरह खून के निकलते रहे।
तो लेकिन ऑपरेशन कोई नहीं हुआ?
नहीं ऑपरेशन कोई नहीं।
So it was never operated. Conservative treatment.
Finally, The Tsunami and the Cherry Blossom. Nominees, director-producer Lucy Walker and Kira Carstensen, producer.
1秒違ったら俺も終わりでした。津波が来るね言われて逃げたよ。車で逃げた。そしたら高いところに行って車を置いたんですけど、そこも津波でボーンやられました。ただ見てるだけ。ババババババ持っていかれて何もない。その中にね人がいた。助けてくれって何もできない。古い仲間さらわれた、持っていかれた。津波に車を取りに行った。最近買った車だったの。それを流されそうになったので車を取りに行って一緒に流された。手を出した届かない。僕も手を出す届かない。死んだ。目の前で死んだ。うちもいらない、服もいらない、何もいらない、命だけ返してくれと。俺はそれだけ、命だけ返してくれと今でも思ってるよ。帰らない、彼らも帰ってこない。まさ見つかって本当に物はねいつかは作れるけど命は帰ってこない。悔しい。そうだけ。
下とかヘドロの下からは自衛隊の方とか他の国のね救助隊の方が見つけてくれてる率が多いんですけども、あと見つからない人は大体が海の底でしょう、多分。恐ろしいね。大川小学校ってところで子どもたちが 70% 流された、その子どもが仙台港の方で発見されている場合もあるわけなんですよ。だからどれだけ流されたってことなんですよね。で、私の生まれ故郷は隣町なんですけども、うちはほとんどないってことは聞いてます。で、うちの姉も行方不明でおりませんし、だから行く勇気って私には今のところないんですけども、行ったらショックでもうどうにもしようないでしょうね。死んだっていうその場を見てないもんですから、私も姉のこともしやどっか山中にで迷って暮らしてるのかなと思ったりするしね。
結局運搬する道路が塞がれてしまったので、枯れ木で、それを撤去して、道路を確保するような作業を行ってました。自衛隊の方が手作業で瓦礫受けながら、まだ20人ほどここで見つかってないもんですから、早く見つけてあげたいっていう気持ちもありましたし。あとは家族のアルバムとか位牌ですか、亡くなった方の、そういうの見つけた時はね、家族に戻ればいいなって思いますけど。
Please give a warm welcome as they ascend to the stage, the directors and producers of this year's 5 documentary shorts. Please come up to the stage. I feel like I was at my wedding reception here. First of all, to get started here, I'd like to point out that at the end there is an empty chair, and that is because the co-director of the first short that you looked at here tonight, the Barber of Birmingham, Gail Dolgin, passed away just over a year ago of breast cancer, and so I asked that they put a chair on the stage today to honor her tonight. So. Robin, her co-director, is here with us, and Gail was a beloved figure in the Bay Area filmmaking community, and was a mentor to many nonfiction filmmakers up in Berkeley in the Bay Area, and is missed by everyone up there. Our paths crossed on Oscar night in March of 2003. When her film A Daughter from Da Nang was nominated along with Bowling for Columbine. And so we were all sitting together, and during the commercial break, I just said to her and the other nominees, hey, in case I win, would you guys come up on the stage with me, because I want to say something, and if you want to be part of that, I invite you to do that. And so they all came up, including Gail, and they stood there facing the the riot that then took place, but every time when I've seen the footage to see Gail standing there very proudly on the 4th night of the war, it was a nice thing. So we miss her, and unfortunately, this is our 2nd year in a row where one of our Oscar nominees for that year did not live long enough to be at the Oscars last year. Tim Hetherington, who was nominated for Restrepo, he was killed in Libya. So, on that note, I'm just going to come down the line here and ask each of you a question about your films, and then maybe we can have a little discussion. And I guess I'll start with you, Robin. How did you guys find this man in Birmingham? Because he's such an, if you've seen the rest of the film, he's such an incredible character, and it just reminds you of how many countless, nameless, faceless, average every American Joes and Janes make up movements like the Civil Rights Movement that, there's not going to be a 10-part series on them on PBS or whatever, but yet they're every bit as important as the leaders of the movement. So I'm just curious how you came across the story.
Yes. Can I first make a comment about what you were saying about Gail, my co-director, because I was fortunate enough to be one of the people that she mentored. This is my first film. But when I first met Gail, and she was telling me about how she was at the Academy Awards for her film Daughter from Da Nang, and she was on stage with Michael Moore, and I couldn't even imagine, oh my God. And so this is surreal. I can't believe.
In case you win, I will not be joining you on the stage on Sunday.
So back before the 2008 election, when we were possibly heading into the nomination of Barack Obama, I started to think about the people who really paved the way and brought us to this day. And I'm a photographer, so like I said, this is my first film, but I felt it was really important to document this moment in history. And I was in particular interested in the foot soldiers of the Civil Rights Movement, the thousands of men, women, and children who most of us don't know anything about. We've heard of all the leaders, Dr. Martin Luther King, and Rosa Parks, but most of us don't know about all of the foot soldiers. And those were the people who marched and integrated the schools and really risked their lives and livelihoods to bring about the change in this country. It would not have happened without them. So I just started to think, what must they be feeling, these people who risked their lives for the right to vote and could possibly be seeing the election of the first African-American president. And so I decided to take a trip to Birmingham, which was known as the most segregated city in the country, and do some research and meet some of the foot soldiers. And I was introduced to a woman named Shirley Floyd, who worked for the Civil Rights Activist Committee, and she introduced me to many foot soldiers. And then somebody said to me, "Have you met the Barber?" So I took a trip to Mr. Armstrong's.
It's usually a scary question. The barber throughout history is not necessarily a kind soul.
So I took a trip to Mr. Armstrong's barber shop, and was looking through the window and saw him sitting there with his bow tie on and his plaid pants and a big smile on his face, and looked around that shop where every inch of space is covered with memorabilia from the Civil Rights Movement. And then I ended up spending hours just talking to Mr. Armstrong and listening to his stories of how he dedicated his entire life to the fight for civil rights and integrated his sons into the all-white Greymount Elementary School and carried the original flag on Bloody Sunday in the march from Selma to Montgomery. And he was the first black family to move into an all-white neighborhood where he was getting bomb threats. He had a guard sitting on his doorstep, and his dog was poisoned to death. And I decided after talking with him that he represented so many of these foot soldiers, and to tell the story through the lens of this man. And then I still didn't know how to make a film, though, after I met all of these wonderful people, and went back to the Bay Area. And by then, Barack Obama had been nominated, and was getting closer to the election, and it was actually, ironically, through a hairdresser who introduced me and Gail to one another. So I sent her some still photographs of Mr. Armstrong and talked to her about the idea, and Gail at that point was in the late stages of breast cancer, and she knew that this would probably be her last film, but she was passionate about this subject, and 2 weeks later, Gail and I were off and shooting this film. So we basically had 1 year Mr. Armstrong. We started shooting right before the election of 2008. Mr. Armstrong passed away November of 2009, and then Gail passed away October of 2010.
Well, thank you for finishing the film and continuing it. It's really, and he cut Dr. King's hair.
He did 3 times.
Yeah. Rebecca and Julie. These two women are, in my humble opinion, they represent a real powerhouse of filmmaking in the documentary community. Rebecca made an incredible documentary a couple of years ago called Which Way Home, where she rode the trains with the kids from Guatemala and Lower Mexico as they went all the way through up to try to get into this country. And when I watched that, I could not believe the risks that you took and how you, not knowing what would happen to you, your own safety, whatever, was just, and you just felt like you were on top of that boxcar, that you were, you, the audience, all of us were there. You made that happen, and just an incredible thing. And Julie, many of you may know, has been the director of documentary programming at HBO for a number of years under Sheila and Nancy. And now, starting I think next week, right, she becomes the executive director of documentary programming and development at WNET, the PBS station in New York City. So congratulations on that. And see her after the show for your funding. You'll never get home tonight. Sorry about that. So, so you made the one comedy on the stage here. The film has such heart, and of course I'm watching, and I'm a recovering Catholic, so I went to the seminary to be a priest, so I have a lot of these same thoughts. I have had them for some time that she expressed in the film, and I got to meet her actually last week in New York, and I believe she's coming to the Oscars on Sunday. Is that right? All right. So they're letting her out of the cloistered environment, and she's going to walk the red carpet. All right. Let me just go on the record and say, if she can walk the red carpet in her nun's habit, Sacha Baron Cohen can come in as the dictator. Sorry, I was dared to say that. No, but it's such an uplifting piece of work, and yet it's still kind of, you're kind of like this with it too, because you can't quite comprehend how somebody would devote their whole life to this, especially having lived out here, having been in these Elvis movies with Montgomery Clift, others, and she's actually a member of the Academy because of all the movies that she was in the 50s and 60s. Does she vote every year? Yes. Does she really? She's gonna. Okay, well, she's gonna get to vote for documentaries next year. She won't have to show up at the 3 nights of the screenings here in L.A. We can send her the screener there in the Abbey. But see all the nuns that night. Are all going to be around. Just where do you come into this on your own religious and spiritual level? I mean, how did
Lord Almighty?
How? I mean, because you're sitting there. This must seem. And we're kind of in the age now, in the last few weeks at least, of the Rick Santorum, vaginal probes. I will control your uterus from here to eternity. And there's actually serious discussions being held about whether you should have birth control or whether doctors can put probes against your will up you.
That's why it's nice to go to the Abbey, because they don't say all that bullshit.
Yeah. Right. So just go at it here. I'm just curious.
Well, I have to say, the nuns were extremely generous with us in terms of those kinds of questions. We actually got to a point where we could ask those questions, because those are the questions you want to ask a nun. What do you do with your sexuality? How do you feel about abortion? Do you support contraception? And I think these nuns in particular are quite modern, despite the the very traditional life that they lead. And in fact, we did ask one of the nuns to go on camera and talk to us about abortion, which she does not necessarily not support. However, she felt if she went on camera and expressed how she felt about abortion, then people couldn't come to her to talk to her because she'd taken a side.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the nuns tend to be quite neutral because their concern is you as a person, your own spirituality, what you have to do to live with yourself. And I think it's more a question of accepting everything with these nuns in particular. And I don't know whether that's every nun is like that, every community of nuns is like that. But in this particular case, they're quite an anomaly because they are habited. They pray 7 times a day. They observe periods of silence. And yet they are quite modern in very, very many ways.
Also, I think it's important to, there's spirituality and there's religiosity. And we've met many people who are religious, but there doesn't seem to be a spiritual root there. I was lucky enough, my mother was a nun for 10 years before I came along. And she's a very spiritual person and a loving and a giving and a generous and accepting person. So I grew up with that. That being said...
She was a nun before you were...
Yes.
This wasn't a virgin birth
I'm not
or
an
anything.
Agnes of God baby,
right,
no.
Okay.
What I'm told, I'm not. But so I had that to begin with, and then going from Montessori and then being dropped into the Catholic school system was nightmarish, to say the least. So I experienced then the sort of bad nun side. But then meeting other nuns, Sister Helen Travis, and also meeting the nuns at the Abbey of Regina Laudis, they are really spiritual people who have lived, who are very real and loving, and we didn't really deal with that, how could I put it, the stereotypical thing we think of when we think of nuns. So it was a great experience.
What did she mean by you have to use your chastity well? What did that? I
do it well.
Do your chastity well.
I mean, just whatever you do it with love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever
Right.
has been created isn't bad. It's not
Right.
bad to explore yourself sexually or other people sexually. Just if you do it for the right reasons and with love and care, then what's wrong with it?
And you made a film on the death row nun, too, right? Was that you?
No. Sister Helen Travis, she was the nun with a past. She was an alcoholic
right,
and
okay.
opened
Right,
a
that's
home
Sister
for
Helen,
recovered addicts in the South Bronx.
Right. Well, thank you for making this film, and it'll be great to see her on Sunday. And it would also be great if there was an Elvis sighting on Sunday, too. So. See old Elvis just kind of swoop down the red carpet, pick her up, and carry her in. James, when I saw your film, that was the first time I had watched the entire footage. I'd seen the entire footage of that from the helicopter. And I know it's been on the internet, but it's just one of those things you just don't want to watch. And I think this is one of the good things about a documentary is that you're compelled to watch it in the context of this documentary, but you're also again watching it with other Americans. With this trial starting tomorrow, and you showing this footage to now a world audience, where do you play into any of this, or where? I'm just curious. Have you had any contact with Bradley Manning or Julian Assange or any of that, or how did you meet this soldier?
No, actually, really, the WikiLeaks thing was kind of secondary to me making this film, although obviously I couldn't have made it without that event happening. I have to say this film for me was just a totally gut-level reaction to that footage. I personally feel it's one of the most significant historical artifacts to come out of that whole war, because I personally feel that it's just totally unmasked what war is. The mistakes that get made, the way things escalate, but really, especially just the total mercilessness of it, I thought was, and I think millions of people kind of felt the same way. But the second thing that disturbed me was the treatment in the American media of it, particularly on broadcast media, as this political football that we would get just people's opinions about, and we'd have predictable opinions from different political sides of the spectrum. And I just felt like it became fodder for the same sort of tired stage debates, and I really just wanted to find out more about what happened. And so in researching it, I just came upon an interview with this man, Ethan McCord. It was on a website. Because, of course, even though he was a witness to this, he said he was there, he participated in various ways, he was completely ignored by United States television media because his conclusion after this was, I don't really feel I can participate in this war in good conscience. And he came back, struggled for a long time with it, and then when WikiLeaks actually released this footage, it sort of spurred him into action and speaking out about it. So I just thought, I mean, for me as a filmmaker, I was so interested in him as a character, you know. Here was this international incident, but yet here was this guy who went through this incredible personal transformation because of this. And so that was the kind of dialectic almost that I thought, wow, this would be really interesting to talk to this guy and find out what he went through. And since no one else was doing it, I thought I would just get on a plane to Wichita, which is what I did about 2 weeks later, and interview him. So it's just kind of this amazing transformational story. And for me, it's a film about empathy, I think, in a way, because what war does to us, I think has done to us as a society sometimes, it just strips that away. In order to do this stuff, you have to be dead to empathy in a way. And here's this guy who has this moment where, it's in the clip there tonight, where he takes this injured child in his arms and he thinks about his own children, and he can't reconcile it. So he has to make a choice, and that to me is the whole movie. So again, it was sort of like for me taking this big international splashy controversy incident and bringing it right down to the ground level of what does one person go through when they have to, kind of process this. And I think it's very hard to, I guess this is my motivation for trying to pursue this as a bigger film. It's very hard to sort of understand things as big as war, and so for me that was the other unique opportunity with this footage, is you have this whole thing in real time, and we know who all these people were who were involved. If I could speak to a lot of them, and you could see how all those lives intersected on that one day, you'd come away maybe with a sense of what war does, just one little part of it. And then, by extension, maybe you'd have a sense of just how damaging the consequences are.
And I think that is the beauty, if I can use that word, of this film, in that you did exactly what you said in terms of most of us, when we first saw that footage, it was on a newscast where there was a debate going on about WikiLeaks. And so the story was WikiLeaks. The story was, how'd this get out there? Who did this?
Who is Julian Assange?
Who's Julian Assange?
He's an enemy of the United States.
And the actual incident with the human beings, those who fired the bullets and those soldiers who tried to save the lives of those children and of the Iraqis themselves, that all got lost in all that noise. And you stripped away that noise and gave us this. And I really personally thank you for that. So
thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, as we go down the line of misery here, when I watched, on the day that we go to, watch the last three films, we're just like, oh my God, after Baghdad, then acid in the face, and I'm like, and then of course the tsunami, and it was just. But let me, Daniel and Sharmeen. Sharmeen has made a wonderful documentary called Pakistan's Taliban
Generation.
Pakistan's Taliban Generation. I won a DuPont Award, and Daniel, I have to tell you. Let me just say this. But to be honest, the film was so gut wrenching. I mean, you saw the reaction just here of the 4 minutes that we showed to the audience, but that goes on for about, how long is it? The film, almost 40 minutes.
It's 39, 59.
39 minutes. 39. I have to. Fortunately, I had my ball cap with me that day, and after the first 10 minutes, I literally had to keep doing this so I could still read the subtitles, but I just could not bear. I mean, I just can't imagine the suffering that these women were going through, and why. And they have these incredible interviews with the husbands, who are just like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, no, yeah, I don't know. Hey, what's wrong? Hey. I mean, it's just. I mean, they do it in Pakistan anyway, but it was not like they were extras on The Sopranos. First of all, how'd you get those guys, the acid throwers, to go on camera and not throw anything on you?
I think I've become quite adept at getting those kind of interviews. You have to massage their egos a little bit, and
and keep your eyes on their hands.
And keep yeah, exactly. But actually, I have to say that they didn't think that they were doing anything wrong, and they were denying it. So they were happy to speak with me and tell me their side of the story, which, according to one Ruxana, who's one of our main characters, her husband said 99% of women in burns wards actually self-inflict this upon themselves.
Amazing. How do you two know each other? How did this happen? You're from Pakistan. You don't look like you're from Pakistan. How did this take place?
Yeah, I was surprisingly conspicuous in Pakistan, so it became immediately evident that I needed a partner there, and I sought out Pakistan's best filmmaker, and she said yes, and came on board, and that's really the film is what it is because Sharmeen came on board.
And how did we avoid not seeing you on TV being held for ransom, or what? I mean, I'm seriously, Daniel. How were you concerned at all for your safety during any of this? Or
well, you probably know this yourself. I mean, I've shot in Afghanistan and Liberia and Sudan, and you're just doing our job. It's so intense, and you're so focused on keeping the camera in focus that you really don't feel fear, or in this case, the misery and the sorrow until you're in the edit, and that's when it really hits you, and it certainly did on this film.
And how long did it take to edit this film?
We were cutting madly for about 4 months, and we actually brought in a second editor, Indian, who understood Urdu and was able to help out in the edit, but we were going at it fast and furious. I would like to mention, though, that Dr. Mohammad Jawad is here tonight. He's come from Pakistan. Can you stand up, Dr. Jawad? If you're near him, please give him a hug. Give the man a hug.
Also, during the reception, he offered me a free tummy tuck. So, thank you. Sorry.
You should make a film about that.
Definitely a sequel.
I'd be happy if somebody went for a walk with me. So 4 months in the edit room, looking at this footage every day. Hundreds and hundreds of times, things we didn't see, footage that we didn't see in this film. How do you maintain your own sense of, you're human. Do you become desensitized to it on the 400th viewing, or?
Yeah. No, you do get anesthetized to it, and that's why the short form is so perfect for this film. I think with the feature-length treatment of this film, you would either be so horrified after an hour, or you'd be so anesthetized that you wouldn't connect. And this film, our biggest remit was to not dwell in pathos and misery, but to try to find redemption and try to find the Pakistanis who are addressing this problem. Not just Dr. Jawad, but the Pakistanis on the ground there. And so that really became our job in the edit, was to find some semblance of hope, because that's the only way there's change.
But I have to say that these women are very brave and they're very resilient. And personally, spending time with them on the ground, I learned a lot about humanity and what it means, the fact that so many of us take so many things for granted every day of our lives, and the fact that they have to live and literally live and stare in the face when they look in the mirror, and they do it with such composure and such dignity. So in a way, I learned personally a lot from these women.
It's very powerful. Thank you for making it. Thank you for caring. Lucy and it's Kira made the Tsunami and the Cherry Blossom, and Lucy did a film a couple of years ago called Wasteland. You might have seen it. It was nominated for an Oscar. Wonderful movie. And then I think in the same year you put out a film called Countdown to Zero about how there's still all these nuclear weapons laying around on this planet, and so if I understand the story right, you had gone to Japan for the opening of a Countdown to Zero. You were going to go to Hiroshima, and the tsunami hit, and this, of course, this postponed the opening of your movie, as it postponed everything there. And you just made a snap decision to just go for it, and you went up there into the zone with all the radiation and everything, and you took.
I knew a lot about radiation from making Countdown to Zero, but yeah.
I know. So you, of all people, should not want to go up there because you just made this film. But yet there you and your camera person, you did the sound, and you got in there and got some remarkable interviews and footage. But again, like with James's archival footage of the incident in Baghdad, I had never seen the entire tsunami. I've still always been a little confused as to how waves could do that kind of damage. 500,000 homes destroyed. I just heard on the news last night. As many homes as there are in Manhattan were destroyed in this tsunami. So it would be as if everything in Manhattan was destroyed. But this, if you haven't seen it, you have somebody's home video footage of this wave, and you don't cut it. You show it in its entirety, and it is the most mind-boggling thing that I've ever seen nature do. And so the decision to lead the film off with that, I thought, was a very powerful way. But maybe you could explain. And how did you hook Kira into this? Because I assume you weren't there getting radiated.
No.
So if we ran the Geiger counter over you,
I'm not stupid.
Right.
No.
How are you feeling, by the way? Are you okay, or are you worried at all, or?
Oh my goodness. We actually we started working together. Actually, when Wasteland was nominated, Kira was helping me out, and gosh, it's a long story. Wait, what's the question? And by the way, can I just say, tough act to follow. How do we follow these guys? What a group! What an amazing group of filmmakers. And my hat is off to everybody. It's tough.
It is. It's an incredible group of films this year, and that is the consensus, I think, of everybody who's been watching them in the shorts programs that are now appearing all over the country, which is really great that shorts are getting that attention. Now, the question was, how are you doing physically? Are you worried at all? And what is it that made you? Let me just point out, maybe if it's not obvious to you, that we, of all the branches in the Academy, if you'll notice, there's only 2 guys on this stage. This is a branch that it has an active, large, even possibly majority force of women filmmakers, and has probably per capita, other than the hair and makeup branch, which I've now cited twice tonight, has more women in it than any of the other branches, and you put yourselves in these sometimes incredibly dangerous situations. So just take us to what was going on and what led you. You're down there in Tokyo. Paramount is releasing your film. You're in a plush hotel. Whoa, why?
I know. It's always with these films, isn't it? Kind of a complicated journey. But I'd actually decided to make a very short, extremely short little piece about cherry blossom previous to the tsunami, and had a wonderful cameraman, Aaron Phillips, amazing genius. I think the film is like an advertisement for Aaron Phillips because he shot it so beautifully. And I had him lined up to do a very small, what I called a visual haiku. To be honest, after I'd gone through the Academy Awards last year with Wasteland, which was such a joy to share with everyone, but I was sort of feeling like another press junket for Countdown to Zero in Tokyo. My goodness, I've got to get back to work. I've got to make something new. I've got to shoot something new. I'm a filmmaker. I'm not a film talker. I want to get back behind the camera as soon as possible. And then the tsunami hit, and all the plans were blown out of the water. The release of the film was postponed. It was a terrible time. And I couldn't stop thinking.
You were actually in LA.
Yeah, I was actually in I hadn't gone yet. I was on my way there. And the opportunity was to bottle out. And there were several moments at which I did get cold feet and think I would. But actually, I wound up thinking we've got a responsibility. This is a different film, a more important film, a bigger film. I don't know what the film even is. But one of the wonderful things is we had a fantastic little team with Kira, who, perhaps thanks to the Academy Award nomination last year, and just generally with us seeing eye to eye, they believed in me, and we were able to sort of respond in the moment. I had an amazing cinematographer. We picked up in Tokyo an amazing translator, just three of us. I love working with tiny crews. And to start with, I wasn't even sure how you get up north. There were so many displaced people. There was no place to stay. There was not electricity in Tokyo. Half the time there were rolling blackouts. The lights were off. The escalators were off, which is, when you've got equipment, no fun. No bottled water, no trains, no cars to rent, no hotels to stay in. It was not easy to figure out, and most of all, it was terrifying with the radiation and constant aftershocks. I'm a bit of an earthquake wimp. So, by the end, I barely opened my eyes and rolled over when there was a magnitude 7 aftershock in the middle of the night, and we were staying in a unrecommended type of place. But at the beginning, I was just squawking like I was in an Indiana Jones movie the whole time, and the whole thing. So it was really unnerving, and that was before we went up north. Yeah.
How many days before you could wash your hair?
Yeah, it was. You wanted to wash the whole time. I was staying in a sort of weird country place where the only other people, everyone there was men. I was the only women there. It was not the documentary branch of the Academy, I'll tell you that. And so there were two baths. There was the man's side and the women's side, but the men were all using the women's side because there were no women. So if I wanted to wash, which I really did, and that was, I knew from my work on Countdown to Zero, an excellent way to reduce your contamination was not to ingest it and to wash. So you wanted to wash, but there were lots of rescue workers in the women's side of the bar, so we had to wait for them to get out for me to wash. And
that must have been an amazing thing to witness, though, because Japan, you would say, would be at the top of the list of the most modern countries on Earth. They're way ahead, even of us, in many ways, of technology and things that they have. And you got to witness that whole thing shutting down, and to imagine, did you imagine what that would be like if we had a catastrophe like that here in LA, in the state of California, whatever, just the things that we take for granted?
It was interesting that you mentioned, that's a good question, nobody asked me that, but the film was funny, it's good.
And my doctor thanks you too.
He's done it before, right? The film was, in some sense, my coda, my sort of personal. I'd actually wanted to go to Japan, even though I had with promoting 2 films back to back and not being in front of the camera person. I had wanted to go to Japan to promote Countdown to Zero because I felt such a responsibility because of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but. It had been very much in my thoughts. I had wanted to visit Hiroshima when I'd been making Countdown to Zero, and I'd never had that opportunity. So for me, that was going to be it was a personal pilgrimage, and it was sort of the end of that journey. And yet, in a much bigger sense, it became the end of the journey because it reminded me, one of the the most important point in a way for me making Canada Zero. I really learned that you can never legislate for accidents. You know, no matter how small or crazy a risk, you've got to take it into account. No matter how safe things are, most of the time you have to factor in accidents. And the Fukushima reactor situation was one of those all too frightening examples of exactly that. It doesn't matter if you prepare for almost every eventuality, the thing you didn't prepare for is going to come along, and when you're dealing with nuclear, the consequences are so devastating. So for me to be in that zone was very much, when I was trying to make Canada Zero, I was trying to think about how do you communicate what it would be like for a nuclear bomb to go off, and I was thinking about what it would be like in New York City if a bomb exploded in Times Square. What would that devastation be like in our country? And so to see Japan, such an advanced country, have such a disaster was, for me, very profound sort of, those thoughts were playing in my head about how I'd imagined what would happen in the aftermath of a nuclear explosion.
And sad to say, you might have actually seen the future in that experience that you had. I hate to say that, but...
nothing since making Canada Zero has reassured me that problem has gone away and isn't the most biggest problem that we face,
we only have a few minutes left in this segment, but I just wanted to ask you all, I'll just throw a couple quick things out. James mentioned that you're thinking of expanding this maybe into a feature-length film. Is there anybody else on the stage here that has thought about taking your short and expanding it to a feature, or maybe even considering a fictionalized version of it or anything like that? Has that crossed anyone's mind? Or you have a lot of nun footage, yeah.
A lot of good footage.
A lot of good stuff? Yeah. You mean stuff that we didn't see? What are you holding back on? Why wouldn't you put the good stuff in there? That's what we want.
Why? Did we just put the bad stuff in?
No. Okay. What's there is great. I can't imagine. But, I mean, are they doing the Watusi? Are they playing Twister? Are they, what?
I'll get back to you.
You're not going to tell us, all right. Anybody else planning to do that?
For me, I was at Sundance actually, and these Sundance kids were saying, "Is it your first short?" And I was like, "It's my first short for a while, you know." And I like the short format. For me, it's new. I've done 4 features and come to a short, and I actually love it. And I wouldn't have had the film be a moment longer. And I think maybe it's wonderful that they're showing in theaters the group of the films together, because I guess that's screenable that way. But I think maybe with our new deteriorating attention span, maybe short is the new long. I don't know.
And what's the plan to get more people to see the films beyond just the
win
shorts?
To win an Oscar.
Win an Oscar? All right, well, that 4 of you aren't going to win that. So, what?
Well, for Daniel and I, we plan to take the film to Pakistan. And actually, it's quite important for Pakistanis to see this film. And we want to show it in schools and colleges and as many community centers as we possibly can, because it's a story that needs to be told about what happens to women after that single act of acid that's thrown on a woman's face.
Wow. Any other thoughts on this, on how to get more people to watch shorts?
Well, I agree. I agree with Lucy. I think the shorts format is really powerful because the stories are tight. The narrative structure is really tight. The stories are interesting, and they don't go longer than they should. And I think I've seen all these films. There's not 1 second where you're bored, and which is not the case in many features. And I think we need to push the broadcast networks to figure out a way to put on these shorts. I mean, HBO has a much easier time since they don't have commercial breaks, and they have fill they can put on after a 20-minute film or 40-minute film. But I think the broadcast networks need to adopt this format for us, because these films are really fascinating. And as you said, the attention span really, it goes along with the way people want to watch things on the screen now.
My film was actually picked up last week by the documentary channel, and which I think is the only channel devoted entirely to documentaries, and so that will be seen, I think, in May, and they actually hit almost 30 million households, I believe. So I was very grateful.
And how about iTunes? People can now buy them on iTunes. That seems like a good way to to get the. Well, Julie, you're going to be now one of the big honchos there at PBS in New York. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have a special evening on PBS to show the 2.5 hours worth of the shorts? You know, just the night is devoted to these shorts. I mean, I think people would tune into that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that the shorts program, obviously at Sundance, it sells out before anything else, so people really enjoy the shorts format. And I also think that what IFC has done this year by packaging the 5 shorts and actually programming a 2-hour movie cycle has worked really well for them. I tried to go once or twice and I didn't go. I was sold out. So, and I think I've been hearing a lot from people all over the country who've been seeing these shorts programmed together. So I think it's something we should work on and push for.
I have a theater in northern Michigan in a rural area, and I am showing the shorts, and they're packed with people. I mean, this isn't just happening in Greenwich Village. I mean, this is. I think people love to watch this format, and I think we should all do what we can to see that these films and other shorts are seen by a larger audience. Well, I personally want to thank you again, all of you, for making these films. I wish you the best of luck on Sunday. Let's have another round of applause for our documentary shorts nominees. And as they leave the stage, we will get set up. Thank you again. We're going to now watch the clips from the 5 nominated. Thank you. The 5 nominated documentary features for the next 20 minutes, and then at the end of that, the directors and producers of those films will join me on the stage. So thank you again, shorts people.
First up, we have Hell and Back Again. Nominees Danfung Dennis, who is the director and producer, and Mike Lerner, producer.
Good day. They rode in a damn car 5 hours. The doctor reiterated the fact today that I'm not ever going to be able to walk or run normal again.
He told Miss Marshall that you were supposed to be off your cane today, by the way.
Okay, never fucking mind. Never mind. Oh, Lord, grant me the strength not to shoot myself.
Talk to me. We got to get over there. All right. Hey, I'm gonna push across, and we're gonna check out what's going on. And then I need you guys to suppress for us to get the machine gun up. Hey, it's directly at that wall from the south, on the west side of the canal, straight down to the south.
Now, 05 man standing near a wall that looks to be west side red canal.
But there's a ditch right here. Right? Sure you saw a fucking back drop?
Guy fucking over here with something on his back.
And he dropped the back?
Yes.
Tell her to fucking mind, Joe. We won't have no problem.
Mind, woman. He's gonna shoot you.
Shoot me, put me on my
Cocked right now. Came over here, stopped behind the tree. You can't see him.
Okay.
And then came back.
Tell me to shut up one more goddamn time, Mitzi. I fucking had it. You fucking hear me? Tell me one more fucking time. Watch what What was it?
Reverse. Hold your position and push right. We found a pop.
I heard something bang. What was that?
Yo, that's coming from the southeast.
Hey, Trent, is that mortars coming down or what is that? Hey, talk to him and tell him the route is not clear.
Roger. Cat blue. We need to
hold your position. We haven't swept that road. They're shooting from the left side of that wall. I see them. We got to get the machine gun there. Hey, Ramirez, pick up the gun. Flank right. Hey, watch the flank. Hey, we got fire from the southeast. Go, go, go. Shit. Yeah. I got. Hey, what's that guy? Hey, where's it coming from? Coming on your right. On the right. Hey! You gotta get your ground from the southeast! They're in that opening! Hey, bring us right left. Hey, switch position. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Get up! Hey, get down, get down, get down. Down, down, down. Everybody good? Fallon, you good? Fallon! Hey, everybody's... Hey, what the fuck was that? The fuck is the fucking idea? I told you guys, do not fucking cross right here. What the fuck? Stuck it down.
Earth Liberation Front is turning up the heat again, igniting devastating blazes all across the country.
A biology lab at the University of Minnesota.
Bloomington, Indiana. New York's Long Island.
Now some say ELF is in New England.
Back in Eugene, people were celebrating. We had no idea that it was people from our neighborhood and they were friends of ours, but we were hearing about what was happening and we were celebrating. I don't think it was just the ELF that started ratcheting things up. I think activists all over the Northwest were also kicking it up a notch. They thought there was a possibility of really making things change. Just have to work at it a little harder, get a little more radical. There was a sort of progression of radicalism that happened in Eugene. And so the police were also amping up their presence because we were amping up our presence.
Literally, we were having 2 protests a week, major protests. And so you can imagine what law enforcement went like. I was doing undercover work around the Eugene area. We were looking for some of these individuals that were causing mayhem around Eugene.
I think it was well known in the movement that they could probe and push and get us to react. in a way that oftentimes didn't look very good. But we were getting rocks and bottles and that kind of thing, fire thrown at us, you know. It just hadn't happened before.
Out of the street! You fucker!
To say that emotions don't play into that would be folly. I mean, that's not true. It is personal to take a rock.
And people's views got hardened and more radicalized from what the police were doing to them within Eugene or other campaigns that were going on around the Northwest.
Are you going to release?
Why are you doing this to us?
Okay, are you going to release? Who's going to release? Go ahead. I only did one eye. I'm going to do the other eye if you don't release.
Please don't hurt me! Violence is not to be used in our mass protest. And leave her alone! Stop it! Stop it!
When those people were getting attacked and stepped on and pepper sprayed in their face while they were locked down, I thought protest and civil disobedience, what's the point? Why bother? You know, it's not getting us anywhere. We're getting victimized by their police, you know. I don't know. I think like a lot of people I knew at the time experienced a massive loss of faith in that systemic change could happen through, you know, the system regulating itself or reforming itself.
In case you didn't hear, that was a clip from If a Tree Falls, a story of the Earth Liberation Front, Marshall Curry and Sam Cullman nominees. Next up, Paradise Lost 3, Purgatory. Nominees, director-producer Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky, director.
But what's right and what's wrong are two different things. And the right thing is that these three men are innocent. That's the right thing. And yes, it was hard for me to stand up and admit that I was wrong. But wrong is wrong. That's the letter from Damien Eccles, Varner Unit, P.O. Box 400. Grady, Arkansas. Dear John, first I want to start off by apologizing to you. I know how it feels to be accused of something you didn't do. Now, these years later, I see just how wrong I was, and I'm sorry. I did the same thing to you that everyone else did to me. The second thing I want to say is thank you. I know it can't have been easy to put aside all of your emotions and look at the evidence with cold, hard logic, but you did. I can't help but believe there is a reason for all of this for both of us. Take care. And know that my thoughts are with you. Damien Eccles.
How you doing? How long has it been since the last time we did this?
We were talking about that in the car. 10 years.
10 years.
It's been a long time.
Time is very, very strange in here.
I'm surprised by things sometimes, I guess, like being told that I have arthritis, or looking in the mirror and realizing my hairline is receding or that my hair's getting thin. And it's hard to accept that because, in a way, my life just sort of stopped abruptly whenever I came here. December the 11th, it will be my 35th birthday. It will be the 17th birthday that I've spent in this prison. I have a son who is now almost the same age I was whenever I was locked up. We were absolutely poverty-stricken white trash. I really do believe these people would have gotten away with murdering me if it would not have been for what you guys did, for being there in the very beginning and getting this whole thing on tape so that the rest of the world sees what was happening. If not for that, these people would have murdered me, swept this under the rug, and I wouldn't be anything but a memory right now.
And now, Undefeated. Nominees T.J. Martin, director, Dan Lindsay, director-producer, and Richard Middlemas, producer.
What time were we supposed to be in here? 2:20. At 2:23, I walk in and everybody's late. It's exactly what I'm talking about. It's exactly what I'm talking about. This is how we lose games, because y'all can't follow simple directions. All right, so here's what we got. Go ahead, I got it from here, money. First thing we're gonna do not watch your playbooks, watch the film. All right, here's the deal.
Mama, found him.
Max Courtney, listen to me. Max Courtney, Stop. What is y'all's problem?
Man, better stop playing with me, bro.
What is y'all's problem?
You
go over there, money.
Stop playing. You
Go
know
over there, money.
Bitch ass nigga. Stop playing, boy.
What? You shut up.
Damn, yo.
I just told him to shut up. You go sit down. Sit. Money.
Bitch ass nigga.
Sit.
Eat my chill.
Go sit down over there. Go. Don't touch one another.
I ain't crazy. Mine ain't crazy.
Shut up. Did you hear me? Money. Money. Y'all killing me. You're sucking it right out of me. I got 4 children at home and a wife. My kids, my own son's first football game is in an hour and a half, and I'm here with you. My business isn't making any money, and I'm still spending my money on you. Y'all ain't giving nothing back. You just take it. You ain't giving me shit. You're just taking. Now you're going to apologize.
Coach, he say anything I'ma found him. I'm just letting you know. If he get out of hand, I'm slapping.
Well, you know what's going to happen? Of course he's going to say something because he's pissed.
I'm slapping him.
No, you're not.
Watch.
Listen to me. No, you're not. You know why? Because I just asked you to. You think I want to deal with this shit right now? I'm trying to get y'all prepared.
Man, gay, that man putting his hand around
He is not gay.
I think he is.
Okay. Then keep your thoughts to yourself. He ain't gay.
I'm gonna tell him when I say gay. Don't touch me. Don't come around me.
Chavis, you, for the betterment of somebody other than yourself, need to do what I'm asking you to do. It's not part of the job description. course, I don't know really what the job description is, frankly. You want to tell me you're sorry for not coming when I called you?
Sorry, Coach.
I know you are. It pissed me off, too. I appreciate you getting away from them and not springing when I told you not to. You backed off, did what you did, and you left because you were hot. You're not going to turn back. You're on the team. You're going to come back with me right now. Listen to me. Listen to me. Look at me. You're going to come back with me right now, and you are not going to get in a fight with him. And listen to me. And he is not going to get in a fight with you. And you're going to put the team before yourself, and you're going to be a man.
Yes, sir.
And you're going to put it behind you. And he's going to be a man. He's going to put it behind you. And our team is not going to be torn apart by stupidity, because we're not going to let it.
Yes, sir.
Will you do that for me?
Yes, sir.
What, were y'all arguing over the armrest?
I don't know. He up there playing. He shouldn't have mugged me.
Just don't sit next to him.
You know, I thought we was friends or something.
Okay, listen. Can you say that to him? Why not?
I ain't finna start no
Say,
more.
Chavis, yeah, I'm mad, but it hurt me because I thought we were friends. I thought we were just friends. Get your shit, let's go.
And finally, we have Pina. This will be a 3D clip. If you need glasses, there's theater staff in the aisles. Just raise your hand. We'll get you a pair of glasses. The nominees are Wenders, director and producer. Gian-Piero Ringel, producer. Everybody have glasses? A pair here in the center.
Pina, j'ai toujours pas rêvé de toi, tu sais. J'attends que tu viennes me faire une petite visite. Moi, j'ai eu tes nouvelles par Daphnis, qui lui rêve tout le temps de toi. C'est pas pareil, hein. Ce serait bien que tu te manifestes. Je t'attends, Pina.
Pina foi embora tão rápido, tão de surpresa. Eu acho que no fim, ela deixa tudo atrás de si e se sente livre. Por isso eu queria oferecer a ela esse momento de leveza, de uma sensação sem peso.
Give a warm welcome to our 5 Oscar nominees for Best Documentary Feature this year. Please come to the stage.
This man is not.
No, he's yes. Vim's a producer is delayed in the at LAX.
Actually, he arrived. His plane arrived, but he got off with the shakes and a high fever, so he's.
Oh, is that right?
He's gone, but he's alive.
Well, we got the Iraq War. We've got the innocent people being sent to prison in our justice system, radical environmentalism, inner city kids who have little hope of getting out of there and making it. Wim Wenders, what the fuck are you doing up here? Ballerinas? The fuck? Don't you understand what this category is? Where there's nothing in there about George W. Bush. There's no Occupy Wall Street.
No,
there's
but there's a lot of healing there.
Yeah, right, there is. It is it's a great honor, if I can speak on behalf of everyone in this room, actually to have you here with us. We have followed your career for many years.
Thank you, guys.
And you not only have given us great fiction features like Paris, Texas and Wings of Desire, but also some of our great documentaries in the last 20 years, Buena Vista Social Club and, of course, Pina and this. So thank you very much for your incredible contribution. And I will start with you, actually. This was an amazing film to watch, and then to watch it in 3D. It was like an experience unlike any other I had had watching a documentary in a movie theater before. And I'm just curious, why did you decide? Where did you get the idea to do this in 3D?
I tried to make this film for 20 years and didn't know how to do it. My tools weren't good enough to catch that splendor and that beauty, and I was stalling for time, telling Pina, give me more time. There's a problem with film and dance. I can't solve it. And then came the solution one day, and I saw a film with the genius title of U2 3D, and that was the eureka moment. I realized we filmmakers were given a serious new tool, and it added a bloody dimension to what we were doing, and that was what I'd been missing, to shoot dance. I mean, finally I could be in the dancer's own element, in space.
Yeah, in this town, this tool you refer to has actually been abused and misused to the point.
That's why I'm here. This is my social context.
Well, thank you for that, because that was I refuse to go to 3D movies at this point now, and so to sit down and watch this in 3D was it took care of all the other bastardization that has gone on with this, and also we did have a feature this year with Martin Scorsese's Hugo, which also made incredible use of 3D. But maybe just say something else about when I was making a joke about the lack of politics here, but you said, but this had healing in it.
I was the least director in the world to make a dance film. For most part of my life, dance included me out. And then Pina showed me something. I discovered her almost against my will. wanted to get out of that appointment, but I had to see this double bill. And it changed my life, and I realized there was a language out there that I didn't know. I didn't know that I was speaking it. My body knew it. And every tough guy I ever took with me to show that to agreed there was a language we didn't know, and it's a very peaceful, it's a very elemental language, and it's maybe the only language we have in common on this planet. And I felt I had to pass that virus. I had to show more people what was out there, what beauty and what, richness.
So you went to a dance theater one night, and you and like me
against my will.
Yes, I had a similar experience, and I don't know if it was your wife or but somebody dragged you to it, and then your world is just kind of flipped, and why did I refuse to experience this for all these years? And so you sat. What was the performance? What was the performance that night when you sat there?
There's a piece by Pina called Kaffee Müller. It's sleepwalkers on a stage, 3 men and 3 women, and in these, it's just a short piece, 40 minutes, and I tell you, I learned more about the relationship between men and women in these 40 minutes than in the entire history of cinema. And there was not a word being spoken. I was completely bewildered. How could this possibly happen? What did this woman know? And that was the beginning of this movie. I tried to know what this woman knew.
You've made fiction films. You've made nonfiction. Where are you with? I mean, when you decide you want to make a work, I mean, does that even cross your mind? I'm guessing you want to tell a story, and sometimes you can tell the story through nonfiction, and sometimes through fiction. But I'm just curious where you're at on that plane of.
Well, sometimes in this case, it lasted 20 years until Eureka moment came. Sometimes it hits you. Like when I was at Social Club, I went completely unprepared on a very short notice of 5 days, because much earlier, I had listened to a tape that Rai Kuda had played to me, and I said to him, Rai, who are these kids you made this unbelievable music with? And he laughed and he said, these aren't kids. The singer is 80 and the other guy is 90, and I didn't believe him. And I said, next time you go, I come with you. And then I didn't hear from him. And then one day he called me and said, I'm going back to Cuba next week. Are you coming? So you do it sometimes on very, very short notice.
So you're telling us that Buena Vista Social Club had a 5-day pre-production?
Yes. Yes, and I came back from Havana and I thought I have a lot of footage. I'm going to go and edit. A couple of months later, Rai called, the guys are giving a concert. They never appeared together on stage. So I got another crew together. We flew to Amsterdam to shoot for another weekend. And I had more material, and I went back to the editing room. And another month later, I got the call, you won't believe it, but the State Department gave the Cubans the visa. They are playing in Carnegie Hall. I had to get a third crew together. And that's when I realized I wasn't even making a music documentary. I was shooting a fairy tale. And that happens sometimes.
Yeah. How were you able to travel to Cuba? The German government doesn't allow that, do they?
They love us for doing this. No, there's no problem. I mean, you can go via Canada or Mexico.
Yeah.
I know. Did you go?
Yeah, but they started a prosecution of me, Bush administration. I don't. In most democracies, I think you're free to travel anywhere you want in the world.
Yes.
That was the point I was trying to make. Well, thank you for this incredible experience.
And thank you all, guys. Thank you.
Hell and back again. That was harrowing. It was, I just, first of all, the guy your main guy that you're following around, the guy with the gun in the car, and is he okay? Where's he at with things right now?
Sergeant Nathan Harris is still an active duty Marine. He's in Camp Lejeune in North Carolina in what's called the Wounded Warriors Regiment. He's still undergoing quite a lot of physical therapy to regain full movement and be able to walk. And more recently started psychological counseling. These are both one-on-one and group sessions to deal with some of these psychological injuries that he has. And he's thinking of leaving the Marines. He's struggling with this identity of who he is if he's not this infantry grunt, which is what he wants to be. He does realize he's never going to go back. And so if he can't be that leader of men, if he doesn't have that purpose and that mission, what can he do in the civilian world will have that same meaning. So he's still struggling with that.
And he's coming to the Academy Awards on Sunday, so...
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
Wow.
And his wife, of course.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Wow. Were you concerned at all when he was brandishing the gun there, and both in the bedroom there and in the car? You're in the room. I assume the gun was loaded.
I think we had this bond and this trust because we had been through these very traumatic experiences in Afghanistan. And so back at home, we sort of understood each other. I felt closer to him than I did most of my friends because we had been through that. And he's the most honest and open man I've ever met. And so in these situations where he does have his gun, and he takes it everywhere. I mean, when he goes to Walmart, when he goes to get out food, he brings this gun with him. He sleeps with his gun. I mean, it's very difficult to turn off these instincts of defending yourself when he's out there for so long fighting. It's very hard to switch that off. So there was no point I felt unsafe. In fact, I felt safer around him than anyone else, and so I trusted him.
Yeah, I bet you there's thousands of guys like that, and women who are coming home from these wars. From what you witnessed, I mean, are we prepared for that? Do we have the services available to them that they need? Because I got to believe, I mean, just from what I've read in the paper in terms of record number of suicides, record number of homicides, record number of spousal abuse, I mean, it's just really sounds bad.
It is bad. I think there's more suicides than there are combat deaths. And so it's this huge number where it's very hard to see these psychological injuries. It's not like a physical wound where you come back and it's obvious. And it often takes months, sometimes years, for these psychological injuries to manifest. And they come on very slowly, and most of these guys don't even realize it. But it's this real sense of isolation, of disorientation, and largely emotional numbness. I think it's a very normal response to be able to turn off your feelings when you're exposed to so much horror that your body sort of just shuts off. And it's very hard to connect with anyone that hasn't been through those experiences, your family and your friends. And that sense of isolation, if not sort of dealt with, can really eat away. And it's hard for a lot of these young men to come forward to seek help because there's still that stigma. These guys are warriors. They just push through it, and they just grit your teeth, and that you go through it because that's what you did out there. So a lot of these stigmas still have to be addressed.
Yeah, you were going to say something?
I think it's also got something to do with the nature of these wars. I mean, veterans came back from the Second World War and had a place in society, and what they had done was recognised and appreciated and supported by the whole society. I think the wars we've been fighting in the last decade are more ambiguous, and I think people come back and they're not sure why you've done what you've done for us, and maybe don't even think you should have done it. And I think that contributes to this sense of alienation. So we had that in Vietnam too, of course, but so I think that's a very big part of it, I think.
Yeah, my dad is 90 years old. He was in the Marines in South Pacific in World War II. And he said pretty much the same thing, that we were attacked, and the world was really at a precarious place. And so everybody knew exactly the job that had to be done and the risks that had to be taken. When you send soldiers into combat that has little to do with defending our lives on this stage, I just had this conversation. One of the people that sat down in the seat next to me on the plane, a kid who just graduated from West Point, and he sat down and he told me this whole thing, and he's on his way to Afghanistan. And it's like, what am I doing? Why am I going there? And the thought that they could be one of the last killed there for what? It's just...
in the film, Nathan says a very moving thing, and he's sort of talking about the reasons that they are fighting there. And he comes out and says, well, the Afghan people, need our help, and they deserve our help. So he's kind of, in his mind, he knows why he's there. And but I don't think necessarily the wider society has that same understanding. And I think.
And do you think, like with other films about Afghanistan and Iraq, that you're going to have a difficult time getting people, especially Americans, because people don't really want to think about this. They certainly don't want to watch it. We don't really want to. We got things to do.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get this kind of story out. And I was working as a photojournalist for a number of years in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I felt that society was numb. They had seen so many pictures of conflict that there's no more reaction to it. And so that was one of the reasons I moved into film, to try to shake people from their indifference and to show them what was actually happening there and what it feels like to go to war and what it feels like to come home from it.
This is an interesting question that I'll pose to everyone here, and you can answer it now or when I come to you. But there's this sense of, when we make documentary films, if the public perceives the wagging finger from us, you need to watch this. You need to take your medicine. You should know about this. It doesn't really engender a desire to go to the theater and eat goobers and popcorn and watch something like this. I mean, do you find that as a part of your dilemma? I really want people to see this, and they should see this. But when you cross that line into should, I mean, we are making movies. We're asking people to go, on a Friday night after they've worked hard all week to go see a movie, get a babysitter, pay some money. So how do we deal with this? Because you've made this incredible film. I wish everybody could see this movie.
It's tough. But in the end, it is a story of this one man and his relationship with his wife, and so it's even though it's about the war, it's also sort of this one guy's struggle, and that simple story of trying to reintegrate into this community that doesn't really understand what he went through, and he's trying to reach out, trying to connect, and trying to transition back. So I think it can be seen sort of as a story of one man as well.
We have two films represented on the stage here that take place essentially in the Memphis area. Undefeated, the three guys down here at the end, TJ and Dan and
Rich.
Sorry about that. Middlemas, right? Yes. I got stuck on your last name, which I
understandable.
Kind of an interesting, cool name.
You too.
Okay, so my question to you: this is the inner city football players, the coach, the white coach. How come I didn't see Sandra Bullock in this movie?
She was busy making The Blind Side while we were filming.
She was busy winning an Oscar.
We literally were in production.
Is that
right? I've told the story before, but we were living in Memphis, and we heard, they're going to make The Blind Side. They're going to make it into a movie, and it got made. It came out.
It did extremely well.
Yeah, she won an Oscar, and we were still in Memphis making our movie.
And you're going, oh shit, right?
Yay, documentary.
And now we only have a year to sit and edit this thing. This is awesome.
Oh, man. The Xanax and the Zoloft came out then, right? Well, okay, so seriously, how did you deal with that? Because that has happened to other documentary filmmakers before, where a fiction film comes out sometimes before, sometimes after, and the documentary gets kind of drowned in all the noise.
Yeah, I mean, it was never... I mean, for people that have seen the film, I mean, there are obvious similarities, but the story is very different. I mean, ours is a story of a team with several storylines. There is one storyline in our film of one of the guys who, I mean, obviously it takes place in the same neighborhood where Michael Oher grew up, which is insane. And OC plays the same position as Michael Oher. But that was a story. More, at least the film especially, was really a story of a love story between a mother and a surrogate son, I guess, if you really want to break it down. And he was plucked out of a community and taken somewhere else, whereas OC was left in a school. It was more about, OC's storyline is more about taking advantage of opportunity and what sacrifices he was going to make to do that.
You're getting a real distribution in movie theaters.
So they tell us.
So we've been told, yeah.
Well,
we are.
You're at the wait a minute. You're at the AMC Lincoln Square on Broadway.
So we're told.
In other words, make a
wait.
Sports films go a long way.
Well, no, but seriously, this is really good. I mean, this is something all of us, support and want to see more of. How did you make that happen?
It was me.
Yeah.
It's all Rich.
Rich, take it over.
Rich has deep pockets.
Yeah. Voila. No, going into the film, the one thing, I think everybody, I'm sure, can attest to this. Like you go in with one idea, and then, you're kind of following your storylines, and it kind of grows in scale and scope. And the one thing that was very consistent with us from the beginning was we wanted to make something that played like a narrative. We wanted to make a film that was much more verite and to let action unfold in front of the camera and less anecdotal. Or we embedded ourselves with this team over the course of 9 months and shot 500 hours of footage. And I know in the world of like Werner Herzog, that's really, really bad. But in our case, that was to garner the trust of not just the kids but also the trust of the community and the greater North Memphis community, because more times than none, in communities like North Memphis, when there's a media presence, they're there to do like a sensationalized story about how violent it is and how crime-ridden it is. And here we are saying, once we discovered North Memphis, Dan and I independently have done enough traveling where we were kind of shocked to see that level of poverty, and we thought, here's an opportunity to show the good and the bad and to celebrate the narratives that take place in communities like this. And the best approach for us was to make a human interest, an intimate human interest piece that at the end of the day really is more of like a coming-of-age film.
But aren't you left with, when you leave there after you're done shooting, just with an utter sense of despair of the poverty in this country, places like Memphis, that there doesn't seem to be a light at the end of the tunnel. The news here a couple weeks ago that now 1 out of 2 Americans live either in poverty or near poverty. 1 out of 2. And it doesn't seem to be getting better. And when you're in places like Memphis or Detroit or places like, I'm just curious what your thoughts were about not the football part of the movie, but the part of the movie that you left there. But they like millions of Americans are kind of shit out of luck, it seems.
Yeah, well, for our hope with the film was to have that conversation happen after you watch the film. We don't feel that we're authorities on the subject enough to tell people what to think, so we wanted to present the world and allow people to have this conversation afterwards. But it's also for us living there and having the experience of being there. None of those kids are sitting around going, "Oh my God, I'm so poor." Like they're going on with their life. They're living their life every day, and it's not their experience is their own personal experience, and so obviously, and so we just wanted to document that and show that, and it wasn't, and not to get
it wasn't like a call to action.
Yeah, it was more like we wanted this conversation to happen after the fact.
Look, neither one of them have socks.
Yeah.
So
talk about we left them in Memphis.
Yeah. I don't think I got the memo too for the Blazer Club here. Neither did you, apparently.
No, I was just busy. They down the street. They just dragged me in. No, I'm. Yeah, don't even go there with the fashion stuff. But I do get to vote for best costume. Just want to make that clear. Well, anyways, thank you for making this film.
Thank you.
People love it. Sam and Marshall, This film, If a Tree Falls, it was actually, you actually also got a theatrical distribution, and I saw it down at the IFC Center in a actual, not during doc weeks, but in a real week, and I didn't mean, somebody distributed your film, right? Who was it?
Oscilloscope. Oscilloscope.
Okay, Oscilloscope. Okay. And so I was not really inclined to go see this. Environmental films, you know what it's going to say. We already know, the Earth is not being treated well. I don't need to be told that or be convinced of it. But I went to it anyways, and I walked out of there wanting to get a hold of this young man in prison because I was so moved by the telling of this story. And again, something that you didn't really hear on the news. You might have heard about it, but then it's the sensationalized, because they did violence against property and boy, these are your main subject is somebody that you wouldn't be afraid of to have over to your home on any given night. So, first of all, maybe you can tell us, is he still in prison, and when is he getting out, and are you still in contact with him?
Yeah, sure. So Daniel is still in prison, yeah. He's got about a year left to go. He will get out. He'll be released to halfway house. He was given a 7-year sentence, which was significantly less than the terrorism and life in prison charges that he was facing. You said that, mentioned that, this story didn't get a lot of light. It was definitely a shocker for us when we walked into this that, someone charged with terrorism, someone who that the federal government identified as being part of a group that was the #1 domestic terror threat in the nation, could then not be something that we all know about. And that was, one of the many entrees into the film.
Mm-hmm. So essentially they got caught up in the post 9/11 terrorism laws and right? I mean, that's the... And
sort of, though. I mean, the terrorism charges that were brought were pre 9/11.
They were pre 9/11.
Yeah, Timothy McVeigh era.
Okay, and then when did you actually make this film?
Well, it was post 9/11. So the particular statute was written as that they used against him was written as a result of Timothy McVeigh.
Okay,
but I mean, definitely the language of post 9/11 America and the sort of heat around the concept of terrorism was part of the reason that they faced life in prison for these arsons.
Right. And the use of police informants and the deals that are cut in order to get people to testify against other people, and those who may have committed more of a crime than Daniel didn't have to suffer. We did, sir, because he decided to actually go through.
Yeah, so the guy who started the Earth Liberation Front in the United States was the first, took part in the first arson, and took part in dozens of arsons actually. Ultimately flipped and wore a wire. The government flew him around the country to get him together with all of his old friends who had all since put the Earth Liberation Front behind them. And got them to talk about the old days on tape. And so in exchange for his cooperation, he didn't have to go to prison at all. Although in the year since the film came out, he was arrested for selling drugs and is now in prison. So.
Good. Well, I just again I thought this was a really incredible film, and did what movies like this should do. It take us to a place we haven't been, expose us to something we knew nothing about, I found it riveting. And thank you for making it.
Thank you.
And that brings us to Joe Berlinger, who, along with Bruce Sinofsky, who could not be here tonight, but will be here on Sunday, You know, I told you this a few weeks ago, that regardless of the Oscar, I believe you two guys, I don't know what other kind of honor we can give you, short of sainthood, but the fact that you devoted 17, 19? Since 93, almost 19 years of your lives to get 3 people falsely accused out of prison. You didn't give up on them, and that it actually happened, that they're actually out. You've done an incredible thing, and you've used cinema as such a powerful tool for justice. And I think everybody in this room is grateful for you devoting so much of your adult life to this.
Thank you. You know, obviously that's very flattering and humbling, and you know,
but you still want the Oscar.
I still want the Oscar. No. Actually, my wife said to me before award season started, she put her hands on my shoulders and looked me in the eyes and said, basically what you just said, and don't worry about any of this hoopla. And I've been trying to keep that in my heart, but it's changing now that I'm here, and you know. But I do want to say, you know, the films have been given a lot of credit, and that's great. And I think the films were a catalyst. But really, something quite extraordinary happened with this case, because you know the films set something off, but really, tens of thousands of people around the world got together and agitated for this, whether it's the regular person who rolled pennies to contribute to the defense fund, or it's Johnny Depp, who has a lot more power and visibility. You know, this case for me has been an incredible life experience, because I've seen the absolute worst in humanity and the absolute best in humanity. The worst in humanity is obviously railroading 3 guys, and then when you know what the truth is, you know, sitting on it for as long as you can, because you don't want to face the consequences. And the best in humanity, that, you know, people really banded together in an amazing show of support. So the films were important in this process, but, you know, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for all this. I mean, to me, the real heroes of the stories are the people who stepped out of their regular lives, whether it's, again, Eddie Vedder, Peter Jackson, or a guy at McDonald's, all of whom, you know, these are all real examples, you know, who just did what it takes. And it shows not just the power of what cinema can do, but what the thing that upsets me about the current state of our country is that we are also generally apathetic, you know. I mean, that's why the Occupy movement was so inspirational on a certain level. Too bad it was a little disorganized, but, you know, it shows what people can do if they really, you know, put their minds together. And this film, for some reason, sparked that in a lot of people. And, you know, that's the hopeful part of it.
Well, that's very generous and humble of you to say that. But Johnny Depp and Eddie and Peter Jackson would not have known of this had you guys not made that first film. That is the truth. And I demand that you accept it.
All right, shucks. No. Well, actually, and the other irony of this whole thing, and this is the lesson that I try to impart to younger filmmakers. You know, we went down to make a film about guilty teenagers. That's the great irony of this whole story. Is we were sent an article that we didn't realize the press was so one-sided. Sheila Nevins at HBO sent us this article, and it just, you know, it seemed like an open and shut case. There was a confession. We arrived within days of the arrest. We really embedded ourselves in that community and spent about 8 months before the trials even started. And it wasn't until about 3 months in that we began to realize that, wait a second, this is not a story of devil-worshipping teens. It's a story of 3 kids who are getting railroaded. And the lesson is that, nonfiction is a journey. You don't know where the story is going. Of course, you need a roadmap, but you have to be open to where the story is taking you. And we were naive enough to think that despite all the problems in the case, it would actually work itself out at trial, and that they would be acquitted. And then we sat through this 3-week trial for Miss Kelly and a 3-week trial for Eccles and Baldwin with our jaws on the ground at just what a literal witch hunt it was. And when those guys got chained up and sent off to, Eccles to death row, that's when we went from being storytellers to being advocates. And Bruce and I decided we would just keep doing this until something happened.
What was that moment like for you? That exact moment when you saw them, they've just been declared guilty, and they are putting them in shackles, and you're in the room.
It was heartbreaking. I mean, first of all, I'm amazed that we were able to stick our cameras where we stuck our cameras for that film. And I think the film was made at the end of a certain era. It was before the O.J. trial, before, if this case had happened today, there would be 80 satellite trucks down there. All the family members would have media representatives. There would be book deals. I mean, we really kind of made this film at the right time. It was kind of the end of a more innocent media era. But when we were in that room watching those guys get chained up, I've never been so devastated in my life. We knew they were innocent, and we knew they had been railroaded. I mean, we actually did quite an unprofessional thing at some point during the trial, and this is actually something just triggered a memory that I actually haven't really said very much. But I remember we went in and we spoke to the judge, and we said, we know you can't officially talk to us, and we know this is really unprofessional, but we really think these guys are innocent, and here's why. And we thought that might help, and it didn't. And by the time those guys were carted off, we were just like, wow, this is unbelievable, And
so you spoke to the judge, and
we did, yeah.
Yeah. So you inserted yourself,
yeah,
to try to alter the outcome of your film.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know this. I know this feeling. In my first,
I did.
In my first film, when we were in Roger and Me, and the deputy sheriff is throwing this family out of their home on Christmas Eve, we just couldn't take it, and we put the camera down, and we just pooled our money together, and we said we went to the deputy, and we said, "Here, we'll pay their rent. We can't. Don't do this."
Yeah.
And he said, "If you don't put that money away, I'm going to arrest you for trying to bribe an officer."
Yeah.
And I always wondered if, I don't know, ethically as a filmmaker if we did the right thing, but morally as a human being, there wasn't anything else.
I don't regret that conversation.
Yeah,
at
no,
all,
that's. Thank you for sharing that.
And it wasn't going to change the outcome, unfortunately.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: in your first two films, The Stepfather, John, you seem to sort of suggest that possibly he might be the murderer. And then there's a turn that takes place here. I don't know if people haven't seen it. I don't want to give it away, but
another suspicion is directed towards another stepfather.
How did you feel in terms of your, Eccles wrote the letter to him apologizing. Did you feel that you guys had unfairly or unjustly put him up there as a potential criminal, only to find out that he wasn't? Because he sure looked guilty.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something I still wrestle with, and I still don't know what the answer is. I'm still processing it. Maybe I'm kidding myself. When I feel good about it, I tell myself that, we were following a story. We were not creating the suspicion. There was natural suspicion being directed towards him by a lot of people, and there was, in the second film, an investigation that unfolded to look into him because there was a now discarded forensic theory about human bite marks. So now all of that stuff has been discarded. So for me, there's a deeper, more philosophical, almost ethical question that is raised for me about the nature of what we do as truth tellers, because we're all in the truth business, and 18 years ago that footage seemed very truthful, and now in hindsight some of the footage that we thought was very truthful is not truthful. And some of the footage that we had discarded 18 years ago, like there's a great shot in Paradise Lost 3 of Terry Hobbs smoking a cigarette in the opening title sequence. We had that footage in 1993, just didn't think it was relevant. And so for me, it raises a much larger issue about, the changing nature of perception and how media can change your perceptions and what is the nature, the nature of what we do. You know?
Have you brought any of the three guys that were released from? Are any of them here? Are they going to come Sunday?
Jason's going to walk the red carpet with us.
Jason's
Jason
gonna-
Baldwin,
okay,
who
wow.
to me is the real hero of the story because he didn't want to take the Alfred plea. He was willing
Right.
to stay in prison and fight. And then when he realized that Damien, who was on death row, you know, that obviously could have an impact on him. And that he could save his life, that he decided to take this deal. And for people who haven't seen the film, the West Memphis Three got out of prison, but the only way that the state of Arkansas would agree to let them out of prison is if they did what's called an Alfred plea, which is a legal maneuver, rarely used legal maneuver, when there is a legal stalemate. And basically, they pled. First of all, you had a guy on death row and two people in prison without the possibility of parole. So for capital murder. So they reduced those charges to first-degree murder. They were then resentenced to time served, and that was the legal mechanism for so the death sentence was vacated, the life sentences without parole were vacated, and so they were allowed to leave prison, but they left prison as convicted killers, which means they can't sue the state of Arkansas for wrongful conviction, which was probably the biggest motivator. And it also tragically means that the state of Arkansas officially will not reopen the case and not look for the real killers. And if you're a parent of a victim, now it's controversial because some of the parents of the victims still believe that they're guilty and some of the parents of the victims believe they're innocent. But if you're a parent of a victim who believes these guys are innocent, it means the state of Arkansas is not pursuing the real killer, which is tragic.
Well, after watching this third episode, I left the theater just wondering how many other people tonight in America are in prison who did not commit the crime.
It's scary.
It is scary. And these three lucked out because you guys went down there. Thank you, Sheila Nevins, for paying for the plane flight.
It's scary. I mean, the fluke is not that three guys were railroaded. The fluke is that we were around to make the movies.
That's the fluke, right? Yeah, and it just makes you wonder how many others. So you're bringing Jason. You're going to bring the young Marine. Do you have any of the football players here, the coach, or
Bill's coming? Yeah, because the other guys NCAA regulations can't do any media.
I see. Right. Well, personally, I would encourage you if any of you win, that you bring them to the stage. I know you've been told not to, but as your governor of your branch,
we like breaking rules.
I will be there, and I'll block any security that tries to prevent it. No, seriously, you have to do that. The country needs to see it. They'll be appreciative to see it. So please do that if that happens. Did you bring any ballerinas with you?
No. But I brought the secret weapon.
You brought the secret weapon.
Yeah, because on your Sermon on the Mount, you were talking about distribution of documentaries, and I thought that was really beautiful. And we're all really fighting for documentaries to get better access to cinemas and to be seen more. And I really, truly believe that 3D is the secret weapon. And
what is the secret weapon?
3D. 3D is the secret weapon. Not the one that you know. Not the one that you know. A future one. Like, if you look at our shorts that we saw before, the barber, the nun, the doctor, what we as documentary filmmakers try to do is take our audience into the presence of somebody, into somebody's world. And I tell you, you see a person in front of you shot in 3D, it's a whole different presence. It's a whole different thing. You can tell your stories in a way that immerse the audience like never before. I'm really convinced, I mean, they're going to keep shooting blockbusters and all that stuff. I'm really convinced this is the future of the documentary language. And you remember, Michael, 15 years ago, we all thought digital was the devil, and there was digital effects just in order to blow up the entire world. And we heard the word morphing because it was a $200,000 effect in a Michael Jackson video. And then a couple of years later, digital single-handedly saved the documentary genre. And we're all shooting digital. And only 10, 12 years ago, it was the devil. And I think that's going to happen with 3D. Right now, it got out of bed on the wrong foot, and But it is a fantastic tool for reality, not for distant stars, but for our planet. It's the fantastic tool. And I really urge you, for your next thing, start thinking about it.
You mean I should do that?
No, you all of you.
Okay, yeah, good.
I personally, I think the secret weapon is just telling really good stories. I think at the end of the day, we've been really fortunate in terms of technological advancements that the medium has been so democratized now that we do have a much broader range of stories and more diverse stories that are being told. But in the age of the YouTube generation, at the end of the day, the better stories kind of still rise to the top regardless of budget. Period. So I think that's the secret.
Well, but I'm curious. Wim has, thrown this out here. What the others of you think about what can be done, should be done. What can we do to advance documentaries in terms of reaching a wider audience, getting theaters to play these, getting the money to let people know that these films exist. In the other art forms, nonfiction is very popular. If you look at the Nielsen ratings of the top, 20 or 30 shows, half of them are nonfiction shows. Some of them are dumb reality shows, but some of them are 60 minutes. People like nonfiction. Pick up the New York Times book review this Sunday. There'll be 3 times more nonfiction books being reviewed than fiction books. People love nonfiction, but somehow we, in our art form, we've never got out of the bastard stepchild part of the art of cinema, and I don't think the audience feels that way about it, but they don't have. I'm just curious, anybody want to throw something in here? You must have thought about this, because you're all trying to get your films seen by as many people as possible. And yes, most of the films get TV money, and it gets eventually on TV, but to have this theatrical experience, and this is what the Oscars are about, movies that are in movie theaters, to have this shared experience of watching a movie. What can we do here in this second decade of this new century to make nonfiction every bit as on par with fiction as it is in other art forms?
Yeah, I think you've already brought it up, but nonfiction is growing more popular. It's just about exhibition and how people consume it. I mean, there's so much stuff competing for our attention. I mean, when there was only theater, you went to the theater because it was the only thing to do. I'm scared to say that. I personally see a future of films going to a film is going to be like going to the opera. It's because there is so much. It's not that films aren't going to be
what
made.
Does that mean?
The
going
exhibition
to the opera?
of them.
You mean that it's a archaic?
It's just going to feel like I don't
mean
the actual product. It's the exhibition of it. The actual idea of going to a theater.
I
could see a day where it's like, oh, we're going to go see a movie and we're going to spend $100 to go see it because
Right.
it's such an event. But
And
it
you could
doesn't
only-
mean we're not
yeah.
going to make
Okay.
documentaries. It doesn't mean we're not going to make films. It's how they're. But I agree with you. They should be viewed in a theater. That's how
Okay,
they're
but that's a
meant to
real
be made.
dark vision you just shared
I know.
with us. And I didn't like it.
Try working with them.
So what's the positive solution to this? Are we smarter than all of them? These
but, you know,
exhibitors
I mean-
and distributors and.
See, but I don't totally agree with you, because I think it's about audience taste. If people, so many films have just, you look at Box Office Mojo, so many documentaries have opened, have had good marketing, and have totally bombed. So to me, it's about expanding the definition of what is a cinematic experience. The film festival, in the last 2 decades, you and I have witnessed the ebb and flow, the golden age 3 times of documentaries in the cinema. But generally speaking, if audiences want to go to the films, they would go. And if distributors thought they could make money, they would make money. And right now we're in a period where people want to see big budget Hollywood entertainment on Friday night, munching their popcorn.
That's playing for us.
Y-
That's
what's
playing
that?
for us. That's totally playing for us, because people are going to be sick and tired of this. And people are really hungry for reality-driven films. I feel that.
But I
all
think
over the world.
look, I'd love for more films to be in the cinema, but there's also this incredibly sophisticated film festival world that is much more developed than it's ever been. People go see it, but I think, some films just don't make it in the cinema because of audience taste. I mean, that's the sad reality to
But
me.
see, I think the audience is there. I asked Michael Barker, who's one of the co-heads of Sony Pictures Classics, and I said, why don't you guys do they did Fog of War. Why don't you don't distribute documentaries anymore? And he said, well, documentaries in the early part, 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, did well. Super Size Me, Spellbound, The Penguins, it was. And his theory on this is that we have allowed, we the distributors, have put too many TV documentaries into cinemas, and the audience was going to a lot of documentaries, and they went to too many of these films, and they said, you know what, I can see that at home on the History Channel. I can see that on Discovery. Why am I paying $12 to go see this? And he feels that the distributors should have exercised more of a curating aspect to this. And it doesn't mean that TV documentaries, but I mean, TV documentaries, some great TV documentaries. And one of the first ones I saw as a kid was called The Selling of the Pentagon by Peter Davis, who went on to make Hearts of Mine. So these are long, great history of television documentaries. But his theory was that too many of them went into the theaters in the middle part of the decade, and then the audience fell off because they just started thinking, I like documentaries, so I can see that on TV. That's one. I just throw that out there, but I'm just curious if anybody else has an idea here that we can share with the audience.
I mean, all of us sit up here very much indebted to you, sir, for the amount of attention you brought to this genre. So I would love to hear what you have to say to this answer. I mean,
well, I think I've heard it actually in some ways, because my films, gross $120 million or $27 million or whatever, and then they all want that documentary that's going to make $20 million, and then when it doesn't, they go, forget documentaries, and you guys, I'm sure you've made pitches where they've said only Michael Moore makes money with documentaries. They don't make any money anymore. I mean, I think that it's actually, I've been used. It's gone the wrong way, and which is really why I keep focusing on this, because when I made Roger and Me, no documentary had ever been shown in multiplexes before, in cineplexes, in malls, shopping malls. It's the first one. Warner Brothers put it in 1,300 theaters, and it kicked the doors open that then helped Hoop Dreams and a bunch of other films get a wider exposure during that part of the first golden age. But it's so I struggle with this because I cannot be satisfied with just my films doing so well, and I look at that box office mojo, and everything else is struggling. I just want to reach out somehow. There's right now there's 110 films, documentaries that have made more than $1 million at the box office. 110. Before Roger, 8 of them came out before Roger and Me, and 102 of them have come out after Roger and Me. So I think that should say something about that. There's this audience there. People do want to see it, but we're in this struggle right now with these distributors and the exhibitors, the theaters, and I just don't want to lay down on this, and I refuse to. So that's how I feel about it. You were going to say something, Vim?
Yes, because you pointed out somewhere before that maybe we should think about being more cinematic, and I don't know, maybe. Yeah, what does it mean? I mean, cinematic. It could mean a lot. It could mean more adventurous in the language that we use than Talking Heads, for instance. So I think there's a lot from our side to be invented and to be done. And I only brought up 3D because I think it is a cinematic tool that we can use for our advantage. And to take people into an experience they cannot say we have that on television.
When you guys are in the edit room and you have that imaginary audience in your head when you're putting your films together, are you seeing that audience sitting in front of the TV screen watching HBO or PBS? Or do you see them in a movie theater on a Friday night or a Saturday night? Are you thinking in that cinematic way where, I need to fashion this film to play on a big screen?
Without question.
Yeah, of course.
Big screen.
Always. Easy answer there. I think the other thing is
all of the films that we've made.
All.
Sorry.
All
one.
Is I feel like you're looking for like an answer, like a solution here, and I feel like I think part of the discussion should be also the way in which documentaries are perceived by potential audiences. Right now, I feel like when you bring up the word documentary, there's this sense of educational, elitist, it's just separate. It's not entertaining, and I think that is what really needs to be broken, the perception of what a documentary can be and what it is.
Or maybe we need to make more entertaining documentaries.
That as well, yes.
Well, I think it's exciting, though. I mean, if you look at least 2 films up here, Hell and Back Again and Pina, and in some ways I would include ours just because the process of, like, how much footage we had to film to get everyone so comfortable that we could capture the moments that we were able to capture. But really, I mean, Hell and Back Again and Pina, like, these films don't exist 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I mean, things are coming out in ways to tell new stories. I mean, Danfung's film is absolutely breathtaking.
Dude,
it's incredible.
every time I watch a frame of your film, it's like, I'm done. I'm retiring.
I'm giving up. But I mean, that doesn't exist a few years ago. And so I'm excited about the format. I just think that they're two different. I mean, they are completely related, but they're also separate in a way. Like exhibition and then what we're making, they're tied intrinsically in a way, but they're also separate issues, if that makes any sense.
The solution, of course, would be that we all hire you and you act in all our movies.
I actually have thought about something like that, where you could just use my name, just say, put me down as an executive producer or whatever, just anything to just, if that would help, or I'll write a few jokes for you, because I think humor is a great way to reach people in a documentary, and it's not used. Humor is not used. Wit is not used enough, and I think you can do a deadly serious subject and have some humor. There, it's a great vehicle, I think, to try and reach people. But
you just proved that all night.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. But you all seem to like each other's movies. I get that sense, right? That you've really enjoyed watching each other's films.
Sorry, we're all men.
That's right. What happened to the ladies? This is an all guy panel. So that they're.
Shoot your theory all to hell, man.
It killed my whole theory. So, how come you're not hiring women? Why can't you work with a female producer?
We can't even afford to pay ourselves.
Yeah. I see. So you wouldn't want to do that. Yeah. Well, I think you've made an incredible group of films. If you haven't seen these movies, please do go to see them. It's the hardest thing to do is to make these films. They take years and years, and you're right, on a shoestring, and no guarantee of anything. So it's really the Lord's work that you all do. I mean that very sincerely, and let's all do what we can to keep this art form moving forward and reaching as many people as possible. So. Stick around up here on the stage, if you will, for just 1 second. Let's give a final round of applause to everybody here tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to our annual documentary night here. Thank you very much. We'll see you next year.